We are here by divine appointment. But what is really the meaning of being here by divine appointment is not only here tonight as this little group, but we are here by divine appointment with life, this life that we are living right now. Because this life that we are leading right now has been appointed at this time for each one to realize our greatness to the maximum. In each individual is contained the possibility of greatness, great greatness, great, great, great greatness. In each individual is contained all the love, all the power possible to realize this greatness now. Because we live in the eternal present. We live in the eternal golden present. And it's only the traditional patterns of our minds that tell us that this realization is for tomorrow or in a future. But in reality, Gurudev Swami Satchidananda ji teaches that we live in the golden present. Everything is contained now. And so that should give us real courage to be unafraid and to stop thinking that this is an achievement, that we have something that we have to achieve. All we have to do is to put ourselves in the position to receive it, to realize it now. That's all. We need to put ourselves in the position, in the right position. We don't have to achieve, like gaining points in a school or something. No. That is one of the delusions of Maya. The delusions that come from the very pit of hell, I would say. Yes. So realize this greatness. Speaking about yoga, yoga is all-encompassing, like we have said before, for those who have been here before. Yoga is all-encompassing and it's universal. But down through the ages, it has been presented as like different systems and concepts. That's only a presentation, it's not a division. Because any little single aspect of yoga that we talk about or that we think about encloses the entire yoga. Just like one drop of blood in our bodies tells us everything about the body, and one drop of the ocean tells us everything about the ocean. One precept of yoga tells us about the entire yoga if we go deep into it. So nothing contradicts itself when we speak about the different precepts of yoga. So this lifetime is very important, and we should be bold. Gurudev used to always speak about being bold. We should be bold and catch heaven, because it's always here. It depends on us and our traditions that obscure the simplicity of our reality in God. When Jesus Christ came to this earth, he said to the people, he was coming with a announcement, with the good news of what we're talking about right now. This is the good news. The kingdom of God is at hand. It's right here now. But your traditions makes the word of God to no effect, he said. Your traditions, your patterns, crystallized, fossilized patterns of thinking and of believing makes the word of God to no effect. And so this is what we have to clean up, all those layers of tradition. And tonight, our reflections are on Asteya, which is one of the precepts of the first yama or limb of the Eightfold Path of Yoga, expounded by the great ancient sage Patanjali. Asteya is described as non-stealing. And at first sight, that would seem easy to understand or simple to understand, because the mind immediately associates non-stealing with not stealing objects or material things, or cheating in some deal, in some business, things that are obvious. But our beloved Gurudev, Swami Satchidananda, explains it in a wider sense that affects our entire existence in this world, in this planet. Mother Nature is constantly providing and providing and providing everything we need for our existence, for our well-being, for our prosperity, even the air we breathe. But if we receive it and don't give back, see, the nature of Mother Nature is to give, is freedom, is openness, to give. But when we receive from Mother Nature and then we don't give back in order for us to also prosper the life around us, then we are breaking that cycle, that natural flow. We are part of nature. So in reality, our deep down, if we look from above, if we rise above and look, is we see that our nature is, we're part of nature. So our nature is, in order to be flowing in the natural way, is to give. But when we break that cycle of giving, what happens? It results in congestion, in a diseased manifestation of life. Disease. And the basis of all disease is congestion. So, and the cure for all disease is circulation. This is so, in our own bodies, is so true. So when this congestion, when we take this congestion far, too far, it results in a cancer. called greed. And what is greed? Greed is wanting to get the most by doing the least. Greed is never having the feeling of having enough, always wanting more and more and more. And what is the cause of greed? Is the fear of lack. Thinking that we're lacking something, that we're missing something, which is the opposite of peace. Because feeling that we're always lacking something, and almost the whole human race is in this condition. Our focus in life is solving problems, trying to fix things, trying to get things. The consciousness of the human false human identification is, I get, I have, therefore I am. Instead of the realization, oh, I am, and therefore I have is inevitable. I have everything. Why? Because I am. I am everything. A perfect example was Sri Gurudev, watching him live. He never worried about, he was never concerned and worried. I should say he never worried. He paid attention to things, but never concerned about money. If he always said, if your life is clean and your objective in life is a good one, things will come. He said, I never worry about money. When he was building the Lotus or Yogaville or everything, he said, it's a good deed. We are doing the action of God, so it has to come. Where God guides, they say, God provides. And this is the same in our individual life. So this sensation of lack is one of the biggest lies from the very pit of hell. One of the biggest lies. And that's what we have to overcome, because in God, we are in God, or in our higher self. We are all completely complete. And when we come out of that realization of completeness, the result is sharing, overflowing, giving, happiness, authority, fearlessness. Is really a royal way of living. A royal way of living. So the lack. So the necessity, the biggest necessity in life today, and we are the body of light. We are the ones that are here to assist in this process, because life wants to be lived, wants to be honored, wants to be allowed to be what it is. And we are the ones that are going to do this, not the future. Let's decide that we do it now with every part of our being. When I said before that we have the possibility of realize the greatness in each one of us, it's because once that is realized, what happens? We walk the earth as a glorification to life, as a manifestation of the nature of God, which is always glory, glory. We begin to walk our life. Once that is realized, We begin to walk our life with every breath, every word, every action, completely forgetful about the person, but just living in glorification of the Creator, glorification of life. People ask me sometimes, oh, I would like to know what my goal in life is. There's only one goal in life, to manifest God. That's our goal in life. Once we know that it manifests God, then the other paths and the systems and the practices come to manifest that. But what is the goal of life? To manifest God. Is that for our own satisfaction? No. Even obtaining enlightenment and even obtaining the greatest revelations is never for ourselves. It's always to put it out and to give it to life, because we live in a world of suffering. We live in a world of great, great need. And if we don't decide, it takes a decision to love. It takes a decision to do. But if we don't decide to do, they say, what is faith? Faith is the substance of things that we hope for. The scriptures say this. And is the evidence of what we have not seen. So, putting faith and just thinking about it doesn't do anything. And the scriptures also tell us that faith without action, we have to act on our faith, is dead. So imagine if someone came to you and told you, oh, your great uncle left you a big fortune, so many millions of dollars. And here the lawyer comes and gives you all the papers and gives you all the things and gives you the checkbooks and everything. And you say, oh, my darling uncle, I hardly knew him. And he leaves me all this money. What a wonderful thing. So then the lawyers leave your home and you keep on looking at this, all the documents, telling you that this is so real and you're so happy. And then go to a drawer and put it all in the drawer. And then somehow keep on with your life and all the documents are in the drawer. And you keep on complaining, oh, if I only had this, if I only had the other. But what does faith do? Faith doesn't do that, just thinking. Faith goes, opens the drawer, takes the checkbook, goes to the bank, and cashes it. That's the action that faith gives. If I believe what these people told me, if I believe what this unknown, wonderful uncle did for me, if I believe it, I would go to the drawer and get the check and go to the bank and begin using it. Faith put to action. It's the same way with us. All the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita is filled with promises. The Bible is filled with promises. If we go through them, I once went through the Bhagavad Gita and took out all the promises. I should do it again because I don't know where the paper is. But, but we should all just go. And all the promises of God are to be believed and acted upon. If it says, give, and it shall be given. Knock, and it shall be opened. Seek and you shall find. If we believe just that, Gurudev used to live like that, you know. So there's so many ways in which we steal from life and create until we get to that cancer they call greed. That is the basis of that is lack. Lack. What is lack? Lack is ignorance of the love of God. And when we say love of God, we usually identify that by thinking that we mean our love for God. But instead of that, let's twist it around a little bit and think the love of God is the love of God for its creation, the love of God for the human beings that He created, that He, she, whatever you want to call it, created. Imagine this love. The human being was not put on earth until everything had already been provided. Like everything was already provided. The earth was perfect. Everything was done. And then, only then, God brings the crown work of creation, which is the human being, and delicately, lovingly puts it on the earth for the human being to not only prosper and enjoy, but to be in a state of joy constantly, everything satisfied. Imagine what love that is. Human being has thirst, water is already provided. And it's a pleasure because all this has been created for our own pleasure, for our own joy. And the human mind, the false identified mind has twisted it in calling it a valley of suffering. We've made it into a valley of suffering by our twisted way of thinking. But imagine, here we are, there's thirst, there's water, and it's a pleasure to drink when you're very thirsty. It's a pleasure. Oh, hunger is here. When you eat the food, it's a pleasure. When you're very hungry and you eat food, it's a pleasure. So, what else? We need to eliminate, excuse me for speech, but we need to eliminate what we ate. Elimination, when you need to eliminate, is a pleasure. You know? The human race needs to procreate. The act of conceiving is a pleasure. Everything is a pleasure. Imagine if we lived on this earth and we had to eat. We're hungry and we had to eat. And eating the food would create terrible pain. It would be a terrible suffering to eat food. That's a hell. But it's a pleasure. Everything is a pleasure. Having a friend that you love each other, is a pleasure. Everything is a pleasure. So that's how we understand the love of God for the human being. Serving and living, Sri Swami Satchidananda was such an inspiration because here was a human being. When I first started serving him, I would watch him like a hawk. to see where he would fail. That was my job at the very beginning, like a detective, investigating where was the failing, you know. And I had come already, when I served Gurudev, from a life that was quite worldly. So it isn't that I came with the purest of mind. So of course, I met him, and I had been dreaming about him for 13 years before I met him. And in spite of all that, still the human mind, I was watching him and watching him like a hawk. I never saw him fail. And whenever he did something that my human mind did perceived as being a mistake, soon the results of that action had turned already into good. And I realized that he would always say, everything is for good. Everything is for good. So speaking about Asteya, I remember I would like to share with you a couple of these experiences. One was at the very beginning of my being a secretary, which I knew nothing about. I was the most ignorant person about everything when I came to Gurudev, and he was the one who taught me everything like a baby. He had to undo what the little that I thought I knew, even answering a phone call. He changed it. Instead of saying hello or whatever, how may I serve you? You know, how may I? So it was a complete change of paradigm in the mind. So I knew nothing about, I was the worst person to come and serve Gurudev because I was not a troubleshooter. I was not a practical person. I just loved him and believed in him. And so it was the time when you still use the Remington typewriter. And I didn't know how to type. We go with one finger like this, tick, 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 tick. And then you had that paper that made the copies. You remember the paper? They made the copies. So one day we were in the Danbury house, and I am there in my room going tick, 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 tick. Oh, it didn't come out all right, so I would take the copy paper and throw it in the basket. Again, oh, mistake, I would take the copy paper. That basket began getting full with mistakes. All of a sudden, Gurudev opens the door and comes in. And he looks at the waste paper basket. And he says, "What is that, Amma?" And I said, "Oh, Gurudev, these are just the mistakes that I've been making. But I'm, the next one is going to be okay." And he took the thing and he put it under my nose. And he says, "This is robbery. This is being a thief. Don't you realize that everything we have in our work, that everything we do is the public's money? Everything we have," he said, "is the public's money. It should be respected. It should be a source of gratitude and respect, and look what you're doing. It's robbery. Learn how to write letters well. From now on, your letters have to be in one page." Well, I didn't know how to do that, I thought. But after that mandate came, His word, see, one who is established in truth, like we said the last time we were together, his word becomes truth. One who is established in truthfulness, his word becomes truth. So lo and behold, I don't know how it happened. I don't know how I did it, but the next letter was in one page, and it was all right. And succeeding that, all the letters, and if I made a mistake, it was only a small mistake or something, but it was a miracle. The word, the divine word, the word of truth, the purity of the truth in the word has the authority. This is why the blessing of a saintly person is so important, because their word carries the result. Once the word is said, the result is there. So that was one example of Gurudev teaching me how I was robbing the public money. Another experience was, I have the fame of being impractical, because that is the truth. I'm not a very practical person, I shouldn't say that, because my word. I'm going to say that I am a practical person and trying to be more practical. So anyway, in another instance, poor Gurudev, when I think of how much he put up with me, we had been looking for land for Yogaville, and we were in Washington, D.C., and of course, people in the area had already organized talks and conferences and things, taking advantage of the fact that he was going to be in the area. So we were staying in the hotel, and that morning's activity had taken us a few miles away from DC. And it was in the morning, all these activities were in the morning. And I became a little anxious, because I was looking at my watch and thinking, at what time is he going to have lunch? Because we have to get back to the hotel. There was a press conference in the afternoon, and I'm thinking, I have to do something for Gurudev to have his lunch. So everything has to be moved quickly, I'm thinking. So I get the brilliant idea of calling the hotel from where we were and sticking with room service and ordering a lunch for the time that I thought we would be there for room satata, and I ordered the menu, because I didn't know what he would like to eat. I had only an idea. I wanted to present him with things for him to just choose. So I called the room service and I ordered a menu, a variety of things to be ready. I told them, when we get there, and I called room service, we need to have the entire thing ready to come quickly to room ta-ta-ta. So I was feeling very good about myself, thinking, well, I have had foresight, not only insight, but foresight. How wonderful. So we we arrive at the hotel, and we go up to the room, to Gurudev's room, and I accommodate him. I sit him down, and I say, Gurudev, your lunch is already ready. Oh, he says. I said, yes. I said, everything is ready. So I call room service, and in they come with 2 round tables filled with food. And I had already accommodated him, and I take the tables and I begin unveiling the other one. And I'm showing him, Gurudev, you have this and this and this and this and this to choose from. What would you like? And he was very serious. And he didn't speak, not a word. This one, Gurudev? Okay, so finally I made a dish for him of only about 3 items. And he ate it very slowly. And then when he had finished, I called room service to come and retrieve the tables. So they came and they retrieved the tables. And I said, Gurudev, would you like to rest now? Because we have a press conference in the afternoon. Come, Amma, come and sit. And he says to me, my beloved ones, I'm going to cry. He says to me, Amma, do you realize how many families in India can eat from what you just sent away? Of course I didn't, but it was a shock. He said, it's a wrong result of this culture, and especially of your upbringing. He said, do you realize that hungry people can eat, have several meals, eating what you just sent away? And in our countries, it's the same thing. In Central America, and so many people that are in need, that are hungry, and the waste that goes on. And he said to me, promise me that you will never waste food again. And he said, even if you're thinking, he says to me, even if you're thinking, oh, they will just bring it down to the kitchen and the people in the kitchen will enjoy it. Somebody's going to eat it and enjoy it. He says, that's not your business. Your intention and your carelessness in ordering all this food, he said, is a robbery. He said, somebody, which is the ashram, we live by the public money, paid for that food, paid for something that we didn't need. He says, promise me that you will never waste food. And beloved ones, believe me that I try my best, but I forget sometimes. But I try my best to remember, especially here in the dining room. There's a carelessness. It's a subconscious thing. It's just lack of thinking, lack of consciousness. I see people sometimes filling up the plate, and then we go back. I'm not saying we, excuse me. But I've seen, it aches in my heart when I see this, that we, the people who call ourselves yogis, who call ourselves spiritual and conscientious, sometimes fill the plate And then when it goes over there, when you go and look at the barrel in which the food is filled with food. And of course, it gets recycled, and we can argue it in any way we want, and that's okay. But the fact is that we have been eating in a yogic spirit, in a community that is supposed to be ruled by the Holy Spirit, and are living like robbers sometimes, and at other times like mendicants. I mean, we diminish the creation that we are by doing things like that. We become mediocre. Nobody wants to be mediocre, to live a mediocre life, you know? And so I promise Gurudev, and I try my best to remember. So I exaggerate the other way and just put a little bit, and if I want more, I go and get more. And sometimes I'm too late here because it has already disappeared. But I try. That doesn't mean that I don't fail. I do fail. But we have to keep the consciousness. So that was one lesson. Oh, and when he said that about how many families could eat in India, by what I had just wasted, tears came to his eyes, and my beloved Gurudev wept. He wept. He was so conscious of the needs in this life, and his love was so profound for human beings of all kinds. He wept. So can you imagine? Of course I promised. Thank you. I'm happy to be speaking about this right now because I'm reminding my own self of how important this is. At another time, it was during my first trip to India with Gurudev. I'm getting the goose pimples just thinking about it. We arrived in India, and we're always under training. Everybody is under training, even if you think you're not. We're all under training, learning how to live, learning how to become nobodies. Because Gurudev used to say, don't try to be somebody. Please, he would say, don't try to be somebody. That is mediocre living. Just try to be nobody or everybody. That is true life. But to try to be somebody, he would say, mediocrity. So we are being trained into becoming nobodies and everybody's. Oh, I have to tell you something, remind me, connected with this. I hope I have time. In India, we go my first trip to India with Gurudev, and he had trying to train me to be in charge of things and hoping that I would get it. He put me in charge of all the reservations. I had to reserve the rooms for everybody and be on track of whose room was what and everything. And then he gives me a big bag, a cloth bag filled with rupees. And he says, here, you be in charge of giving the money to the temples. When we go to visit the temples, we have to make an offering. So you will be in charge of giving from this bag. So, okay, I took the bag and we went to the temples, and Amma, with all great love and blessings for the temple, I started giving money. The bag, giving money. And we went for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks or something, doing that. Now, during that trip to India, it was so beautiful. I don't know if they do the others that travel with Gurudev, but that first trip for me was beautiful because at the end of the day, he would gather all of us in his bedroom. And typical Indian style, he would recline himself in his bed. This is like in our countries too. He would recline himself in his bed, and all of us all around. My father used to receive visitors like that, you know. So Gurudev would recline, and all of us around. And it was beautiful because each one would give their experience of the day with him. And we would just share about the experience of the day and plan for the next day. So there were precious moments of satsang with our Gurudev, doing this every evening before we retired and planning for the next day. So there comes one evening in which we did this, and then we say good night, and we're all going out. And then he says, Amma, you stay. Oh, okay. How nice. And I come and he says, sit down, Amma. Can you tell me, he says, how much money there is in the bag? And I said, oh, we have plenty of money, Gurudev. We have plenty of money in the bag. And he says, how much? Oh, I don't know, Gurudev, but there's plenty of money in the bag still. You mean to say you don't know how much money there is in the bag? No, Gurudev, but don't worry, there's plenty of rupees in the bag yet. And he says, do you know how much money I gave you when I gave you the bag? And I said, no, Gurudev, no idea. He says, you don't know how much money I gave you at the beginning? And how much money is left? I said, no, Gurudev. Thank God I was sitting, because he said, Amma, money is very tricky. Money has the power to break relationships. It doesn't matter how close they are. And I know that you consider me not only your guru, but your father, your daddy. So you think that you can freely do things, that you have the freedom to be careless. He says, no. The closer you are to a person, the more careful you have to be about money things. Because money can separate the closest relationship. Besides, he says, those rupees were bought for us to use them. And you, by not paying attention, I'm speaking about you, Amma, he said. It's not the fact that you just gave it, but that you gave it without thinking of where it comes from, how it came, how it were produced, these rupees. So you are, in a way, robbing the people who provided for us to have rupees. Oh, Mama. Well, that shook me. And he said, the closer the relationship, your guru is the closest thing, and your father. But you have to be very careful in money matters, and the fact that I was robbing whoever produced this bag of money for that use. He was dealing more with my consciousness than with the fact. So that is another incident with Gurudev. When I say, I remember my Guru who is Brahman. Who is Brahman? Can you tell me? In your understanding, who is Brahman?
The creator the creator of all things.
The what?
The creator
Yeah,
of all things.
the creator principle of the entire universe. The conglomeration of all life and power. The creator. That creator is the Guru. So the physical Guru is embodying the entire nature of that creator. If we just sit down and meditate on that, I remember my Guru who is Brahman. I speak of my Guru who is Brahman. I surrender. You know that word surrender, I'm going to come back to that. That word surrender can also be interpreted as merging. Sometimes we think of surrender like going to the guillotine and having our heads shoved up, surrendering, like a defeat almost. It is a defeat of the human ego, but we think about it not with a pleasurable I surrender, but if you think about it as a merger, like a corporation that is not doing very well, a little small corporation that is not doing very well, and then comes this big corporation that is fantastic and having great success, substantial money and everything. And so the little corporation, the big corporation wants to absorb the small corporation. But when that happens, the small corporation is just merging into something greater. And its identity, the old identity, ceases to be, and now it's the big corporation. So these words that I just said, I remember my Guru who is Brahman. I speak of my Guru who is Brahman. I surrender to my Guru. That means I merge with my Guru who is Brahman and I become great. These words, these lines are from the Guru Gita, which is the most precious mantra of the entire, considered, of the entire Hindu lore. But when it says, I surrender to my Guru, I just merge to my Guru who is Brahman. I serve my Guru who is Brahman. So the results of living a life of givingness, which is the opposite of stealing, is health. Gurudev says, the person who wants to become the richest person should practice the opposite of stealing. You know, and this is the time in which to really believe for the healing of the nations and the healing of us, the individuals, from that very sick, diseased consciousness of a sense of lack. Because if we merge, we have everything. And then comes a life of freedom, a regal life, royalty, fearlessness. If we give, we're never going to have any fear of losing, because it is a universal law that says, give and it shall be given. Multiplied, running over. That's the secret of receiving multiplied and running over abundance, the abundant life. So it's completely fearlessness, is openness, is freedom. And it is the secret of richness.